Okay, so the next problem in the lead code we are solving is word pattern. Okay, so what does it mean is, so basically here there is a pattern. Okay, there's a given pattern string and there is a given string. Okay, and we need to check if the string, whatever the character, the pattern character present in the pattern, right, it will map to the s string after splitting it. Basically, like let's say that we can split it into multiple words, right? So what we need to check is if there is a mapping between a and b. Like I mean, a pattern for each of the characters should map to one word here. Okay, basically what does that mean is we should be having a one-to-one mapping here. Okay, one-to-one mapping is valid, but it should not have many to one or one to many. Okay, so what does it mean is, so let's say if you take an example of a, right, a is equal to dog. Okay, let's a is equal to dog, and this is one to one mapping. Currently, as of now, this is one to one mapping. Okay, so let's say b is also mapping to the dog. Okay, so it's what does happen here, many to one relation happen. Like a is also mapping to dog word and b is also mapping to this one. This is not a valid configuration. Okay, so in the other way around, what we can tell is, like let's say that currently we'll take the same example, a is mapped to dog. We discussed about many to one, so now let's see like one to many. Okay, 1 second. Okay, so many, this is many to one, and we'll see like one to many. So basically a is mapped to dog, right? Here what we'll do is a is also mapping to word cat. Okay, so now what is happening here, so single character is having multiple mappings. Even this is not a valid one. Okay, so every time it should be like one to one. So let's say that character a is mapped to dog, let's say that, and b is mapping to word cat. Okay, this is a valid configuration. Okay, so this is what we need to ensure. If there is any many to one or one to many relationship, we need to return false. If there is a one to one mapping, and also if all the characters that is present in the pattern is having a matching in the string is, then we are supposed to return as true. Okay, this is the problem about. So now let's quickly see these examples also. Okay, so here we could see that a is mapped to dog and b is mapped to cat, and we already know that b is already mapped to cat. It should be the same, still be the same. We'll check if the okay, it is still mapping to the cat. Okay, yes, it is still. And a we already saw it before. We already know that it should map to the dog, else we should be returning false. We'll see if the character that we there was dog. Okay, it is there, so it's the same mapping, right? A is mapped to dog and b is mapped to cat, right? This is the mapping that we are talking about, right? We just applied it here, and it is following the pattern, so we'll be returning it as true. And the second example here and the second problem is, here we have a pattern, and this is the s1. Okay, a character is mapping to dog, right? A is mapping to dog, and when we check for the b is mapping to the cat, b is mapping for cat. Okay, and next thing is, again b is already, actually we already know that b is mapped to cat. We'll check it here, and it is still the same, right? But when we go to the last character, right, like last character, we know that a should be mapping to the dog, correct? But here we could see that a is mapping to the fish one, so it is currently having like this configuration, many to one to many relationship, right? In one to many relationship, that we are not supposed to consider it as a valid, and will be supposed to return it as a false. Okay, now let's quickly see like how we can approach this problem. Basically, so basically what we're going to do here is, let's say that obviously, like first thing we need to do here is, given string yes, we'll need to split it based on the space. Okay, so that we can get it into the list of words. Okay, and next thing what we can do is, we can check whatever the number of, what is the length of, whatever the length of this one pattern, if it is equal to the length of the split string, right? That makes sense, correct? We need to have a mapping for each of them. Let's say that there is one more extra word here, it is not a full match, right? We need to return false. So what we can simply do is, simply without further calculation, we can simply check the length of pattern and the length of the split string, so that we can get the to check if there is a correct number of matching or not. Okay, so if the like I mean that's the next thing, actually, if there is actually mapping or not. But if the length itself is not matching, we can simply return as false. Okay, that is one thing. And once we are good that, like I mean, whatever the number of characters present in the pattern matches with the number of words present in the string, yes, right, we can proceed for the further calculation. Okay, so what we'll simply do is, whatever we did during this analysis, right, we'll apply the same thing. Okay, so basically here we have a word ABB, right? So we'll iterate through this pattern, and if we are encountering this character for the first time, we'll add it to the mapping. Okay, so we'll see that A is mapping to dog. Okay, and the next thing what we'll do, we'll go to B. Okay, and B, is it present in our mapping list? No. So what can simply do is we'll map it to the cat. Okay, and next thing what we can do is, okay, again we encounter the character B. So what we'll do this time, we'll check in the dictionary that if it is present or not. Okay, it is present there. So if it is present, it is mapped to cat. So again here, is it still mapping to the cat or it is mapping to something else? Okay, if it is mapping to the cat, then we are good. Okay, like it's a valid map. If it is mapping to something else, it will come under this category, so we'll be returning as false. Okay, this is what we are going to do. And also second most thing is, we need to hand, like I mean, whatever the example we saw seen so far, that was for one to many. We are not handling the many to one yet. Okay, let me clear this out first. Okay, so now to check the many to one thing, right, we'll check the example number 3 now. Okay, so now we'll apply the same approach. So what we'll do is, A is mapped to dog, A is mapped to dog. Okay, and now when the next character comes, A is there, but A is mapped to some other character, right? This will return it as false. Okay, so now let's just tweak this a bit. What we can do is, okay, now what we can do here is, let's say remove this one and put the character B here. Okay, character B here. Okay, one second, this is not be well. Okay, so just draw this pattern. Okay, this is a new list. Okay, so now what, now we'll apply the same logic. Okay, so this was a given pattern and this is the given number of s. Okay, we have just split it down. So now according to our flow, what we are going to do here is, A, we'll check if there is no mapping, so we'll add the mapping A to dog. Okay, and the next thing what we need to do here is B is not there in the mapping, so we'll again add to the mapping, right? So what does this lead to is, like I mean, here it will lead to the A is also mapping to dog, B is also mapping to dog. This will lead to the many to one relationship, which we not supposed to consider. Like I mean, we should be returning as false. So to solve this, what we can do is, whatever the mapping values that we already had, right, we can simply check whatever the new value that we are going to add, is it already present in the value list. Okay, so it is like I mean, before adding this mapping, we need to check. First we'll check if this is present in the mapping dictionary or okay, this will check here in the key. But here, even for the value, what we can do is, one option is, we can check the values also. We can iterate through the values and see if this is already added or not. If it is not added, that's a valid, so we can add this mapping. If it is already there, we should not be add a mapping. Okay, so what we can do is, map dot values, we can check if the dog exists in map dot values. If it is there, so we'll return a false. Okay, that is one way of doing it. Or what we can simply do is, we can keep a track of this also. Okay, currently what we're doing, we are adding this mapping and we are proceeding further, correct? So instead what we can do is, we can keep a track of it. Like let's say that whenever I add a mapping, I will say that I will build a new list. Okay, I will build a new set. I can say, I will add this dog here, so it was not already mapped, so I'm not supposed to use it in any other mapping, so I will just use it. So next time when I get any word cat, let's say I will add it here. So if any other word character trying to point to this cat, so I can just look up here and say that, okay, it is already present, I am not supposed to map it here. Okay, we can simply return it as false. Okay, this is so one another way. Okay, like we can solve it in three ways basically, like I mean, or more than that. So one is, we can check it in the values. Okay, like I mean, whatever the mapping that we are building, we can simply look up in the values, and if it is already there, we can return false. Or we can keep a track of separate values list. Okay, values list. So before actually adding a new value, we need to check if it is already mapped to something else. If it is mapped, we can return it as a false. Okay, so or else we can maintain a two separate mappings actually. So one is character to word mapping, so character to word mapping, and another one is word to char mapping. Okay, so we did discuss the character word mapping here. Okay, so basically in the word to char, what will happen, so as soon as you add this mapping, right, A to dog, so in the word to care, we also need to add the mapping for dog to A. So what will happen in this way? So whenever we add a new mapping, we can simply look that word is already there here or not. Okay. So based on that, we can decide whether to add or not. Okay. So now let's quickly check the code. So if you understood the flow, like I think it's a straightforward now. So here we'll be going to maintain a mapping here and here. So I'm going to the second approach where I'm going to track the values here basically. So instead of tracking this, what I can simply do is, I can check if the mapping dot values mapping. I can check that whatever that word dog cat, right? I can simply check if it is present in the mapping dot values, or that is one way. Or here I am using a variable here to keep a track of the values. Okay, that will be, and also I'm not using a list here. I'm using a set because that in operation will be faster here. Okay, so now first foremost thing, we splitted this string into the multiple words. Okay, and we got a length. And first we need to see like if the length is matching or not. Let's say that if there is only three words but here four patterns, obviously it won't match at the end, right? So there is no worth to to do the further calculation, we'll be checking the length first. Based on that, we'll be proceeding. Okay, so now what we are going to do next here is, for we'll iterate through the each of the character present in the pattern. Okay, and first foremost thing, if it is not there in the mapping, we'll add a mapping. Okay, and also when before adding a mapping, we need to make sure that whatever the value that we are adding, right, it is not already mapped to something else. Okay, we'll ensure that if it is there, if it is already mapped, we'll simply return as false. Okay, so first foremost thing, what is happening here, if it is not in the mapping, we'll add a mapping. And when we add a mapping, we'll also need to add a value to the visited list, or visited list, so we can use it here later. Okay, so if it is already mapped to some character, right, there after, what we can do here is mapping of character is not equal to this one. Mapping, if it is mapping of character, like, I mean, if it is like if it's not mapping, right, like in that case we can simply return as false. So this is the code flows like here. Or else what we can do is char to word to char mapping. So whenever we add a mapping for char to word, right, instead of visited, you will have to add a word to char mapping also. Okay, and also here we'll be checking the word to char, like, I mean, if it is present, if that word is present here already, if it is present, it means that that word is already mapped to some other character, so we'll be returning as false. That's it. Thanks.